Jury deliberations in the criminal sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs are set to get underway tomorrow. This comes after the panel heard hours of closing arguments from the legal teams. The defense argued that the prosecution exaggerated its case against Combs and has only shown evidence of his sexual preferences and personal drug problems, not a criminal enterprise. The prosecution accused the defense team of blaming the victims and urging the jury to find Combs guilty. The music mogul has pleaded not guilty to charges that include racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. If convicted on all counts, he could face up to life in prison. With me now is trial consultant Richard Gabriel. He is the author of Acquittal. An insider reveals the stories and strategies behind today's most infamous verdicts. Richard, great to see you.
Good to see you.
So it's been more than 6 weeks of testimony in this case. We've heard from 34 witnesses, all called by the prosecution. What do you think the jury will latch on to most?
Well, juries are funny in terms of that they have sat there for 6 weeks. You have these very voluminous closing arguments, and they usually follow two courses. One is what they call a verdict-driven deliberation, where basically it's like, okay, how many people say yes or no to the following questions? Mm-hmm. Typically, those are a little bit quicker, or they have really evidence-driven deliberations, which is they really go into very deep analysis of each of the pieces of evidence, all the testimony. With 6-week trial, typically the jurors do like to take a little bit of their time here, but fundamentally, I do think it's going to come down to two core themes from either side. One is control versus choice. Did Sean Combs control all these people for his criminal enterprise, or were these actually the choices of people that are participating in maybe a very different type of lifestyle?
Right. So the jury will have had a weekend to think things over after the closing statements and before hearing the instructions about deliberations. Is there a way in which to forecast whether that's helpful or harmful at all for either side?
Not really. I mean, they've spent a long time in this trial. They've had lots of weekends to think about it. Obviously, the closing arguments, quite frankly, closing arguments at this point in the trial are not necessarily as helpful for the jury, because there may be some middle ground jurors who are kind of on the fence and the closing arguments make a difference with. But a lot of times they've already kind of made up their minds. The thing I found interesting, especially about the defense's closing arguments, is they really did personalize it. And they said, this is really just isn't about Sean Combs, it's about you. And sort of taking a shot at sort of saying, if this is criminal, if these are criminal acts, then who are they going to come for next? And that's sort of an interesting message, because I think both sides are trying to kind of send a message and say, what's the message you want to send with your verdict?
All right, so looking at the jurors and this jury, it's made up of 8 men, 4 women. The youngest is 30, the eldest is 74. They are represented by a physician assistant, a deli clerk, a charity worker. There's a massage therapist, actor, scientist, and social worker, all in the mix. I mean, incredibly diverse. How important is the makeup of the jury? How might it potentially impact the verdict?
Well, the makeup of the jury is key. It's obviously where we spend a lot of our time in jury selection, to kind of find out not only who are the people, but also what are the personalities. Because remember, prosecutors need a unanimous verdict. They need everybody to get along in the group there, and they have to have absolute agreement on all of the issues and all the counts in order to have the verdict that they want. Quite frankly, defense only needs one juror to say, I don't see it, I don't believe it. So the personalities and how well they get along, how well they cooperate is important. That being said, the research is very clear. Diverse juries make better decisions because you have lots of different perspectives. It just happens to be interesting to find out sort of how do they go about the process then of actually working through the evidence and also working through any disagreements about how they see the evidence in the case. So the makeup is very important.
As you write in your book, you worked on several high-profile cases, including the trials of Casey Anthony, O.J. Simpson, Phil Spector. And in your experience, are jurors able to separate kind of preconceived notions of what they know or what they think they know of a celebrity defendant versus what they have heard during trial?
They really are. It's amazing because we test this all the time. We take a look at polls and we see, how the thing, and obviously there's a lot of public pressure on jurors to especially convict a defendant, especially when they have kind of the behavior that Sean Combs has been accused of. It's very sensitive, but they take their jobs incredibly seriously, and they really are able to kind of go, okay, I know how I initially felt, but all of a sudden they do hear all the specific evidence that sometimes we at home don't, and they really get to go into the details of it and find out whether it matches or mismatches what the charges are. So jurors do a good job.
Richard Gabriel, what a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.